Banking on billions, Sagicor Bank CEO talks billion-dollar net profit, possible expansion plans, and new product innovation. Weekend Business Report starts right now. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Kenil Gale. Thanks for joining us this week. The last quarter was a good one for Sagicor Bank. The company raked in a net profit of some $1.3 billion. WBR sat down with the bank CEO recently, and we'll share that interview in a few minutes. But right now, let's get to some of the week's top stories from the BATV News Desk. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says CARICOM needs to act decisively and strategically to take advantage of global opportunities which will benefit the people of the region. The Prime Minister was addressing the opening ceremony of the 30th intersessional meeting of the Conference of CARICOM Heads of Government in St. Kitts on Tuesday.
Prime Minister Holness told the CARICOM leaders that during his stint as chairman, his focus was primarily on overcoming the inertia which characterized the regional mechanisms and significantly impaired CARICOM's ability to simply get things done.
It was also important for us to press for progress on matters which would enable the average Caribbean man and woman to experience CARICOM in a real and tangible way through implementation of the free movement regime.
He pointed to several achievements during his tenure, which he said addressed some of the major concerns about CARICOM's effectiveness.
We made a giant leap forward to respond to the circumstances of our community nationals, that they be treated fairly, with respect and dignity. In this regard, we adopted the procedures on the refusal of entry and agreed to implement them by August 2018. Another historic step was taken during the 39th session by some member states who demonstrated their firm commitment to ensure that the free movement of skills provisions in the Caribbean single market and economy regime not only work for the principal beneficiaries, but also their families through their signature of the Protocol on Contingent Rights. 10 countries have so far signed that protocol.
Prime Minister Holness added that getting the CSME to work effectively will undoubtedly benefit the region's economy.
We reclaimed the objective of economic growth and development and emphasized the central role of our private sector and labor in assisting the region on this path. The importance of the private sector to spur growth and development in our region has been further recognized by the agreement to take all necessary steps to allow our mutual recognition of companies incorporated in a CARICOM member state.
In the meantime, he urged the CARICOM heads of government to build on the successes of the past several months.
Having made these bold steps and issued our strong joint recommitment to the regional process, it would be a disservice to ourselves and to our people if we do not deliver. It falls to us now to ensure that our collective visions are always balanced by monitoring our actual achievements and evaluating our capacity to implement.
The long-awaited Microcredit Act has been tabled in Parliament, but before the legislation was tabled, opposition parliamentarians argued about the government's reason for the urgency. Some parliamentarians claimed that the bill was being hastily tabled to appease the IMF team, which was in Jamaica at the time.
Mixed reactions came from the tabling of the Microcredit Act yesterday. The opposition's People's National Party accused the government of having an ad hoc approach to the parliamentary process. Michael Phillips, who was acting as opposition leader of government business, said his side received the notice less than 24 hours ago that Parliament was being convened. This, he said, accounted for the low turnout.
We are not objecting to coming to the sitting of the House, but we want to ensure that members are given ample notice so that we can make other arrangements and prepare ourselves for the sitting. But it may be good for you who is an MP that is close by. For those who are not close by, have to make other arrangements.
But leader of government business Carl Samuda theorized that the opposition members of parliament were absent because they were out campaigning for the highly anticipated East Portland by-election.
I know where 90% of your absentees are. I know where they are. But I'm not going to crucify them for trying to climb Mount Everest. That's their business. That's their business. But what I am saying, Mr. Speaker, is that we must always be ready to meet. And the leader of opposition business was informed by me on Saturday morning.
Meanwhile, opposition spokesman on finance Mark Golding questioned whether the government's hurried approach to have the bill tabled was in response to the IMF's current visit. A team from the multilateral agency is on the island for a one-week visit to review the country's progress under the precautionary standby arrangement. But Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark dismissed the opposition's claims, arguing that the tabling of the bill has been long anticipated.
The bill entitled the Microcredit Act, is it a structural benchmark under the program? Because that was never communicated.
So, Mr. Speaker, under our economic reform program, we have several commitments. And some of those commitments are what the member asked, a structural benchmark. This is not a structural benchmark, but it is a commitment. And not only is it a commitment, Mr. Speaker, I don't know about the other side, but this government is concerned about access to finance. This government wants all Jamaicans to have access to finance. The microcredit bill, Mr. Speaker, deals with access to finance for those among us who depend on microcredit institutions for financing.
In the end, the Microcredit Act 2019 bill was tabled by Minister Clark and is expected to be debated in Parliament next week.
It is a shame that the opposition raised objection to the tabling of this bill. Mr. Speaker, under notice of motion given orally, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House, I will move to introduce and have read a first time a bill shortly entitled the Microcredit Act 2019.
Chairman of the Wasinka Group, William Mafood, says the billions of dollars being pumped into campaigns to support a sugar tax should be spent to educate persons on how to live a healthier life. His comments come as the Heart Foundation of Jamaica launched Phase 4 of its Are You Drinking Yourselves Sick campaign last week. Siobhan Keys reports.
Are you drinking yourself sick?
That's a part of a months-long campaign by the Heart Foundation of Jamaica HFJ, encouraging people to consume less sugary drinks. Last Friday, the HFJ launched the fourth phase of that campaign, calling for a tax on sugary beverages. Chairman of the Wasinka Group, William Mafood, says taxing these beverages may not have the desired outcome.
Taxes on any product or class of products is very discriminatory. I mean, you know, we do tax, for example, alcohol. Or globally, alcohol is taxed, or tobacco products. But you don't tax alcohol that comes in one shape or form and not another. When the tax is applied, it's applied against all alcoholic products. Sugary drinks, there's not enough research that can justify the fact that, you know, sugary drinks is what is making people obese.
He says a sedentary lifestyle may be the source of the issue and education should help to solve that.
I think what we need to do is, rather than spending so much money on talking about taxing sugary drinks, they should be spending money on educating people about healthier lifestyles. And that would be the avenue that I think they should have taken.
In the meantime, Mr. Mafood says the limitations on sugary drinks in schools has forced them to reformulate. He says this also poses a problem as the impact of the sugar substitutes aren't fully known.
So we have had to reformulate a number of products. What I think you're seeing now is more products entering the school system with artificial sweeteners. And I think the ruling is not yet out as to whether or not giving children artificial sweeteners is better for them than sugar. I mean, ultimately, I know that as a parent, I'd prefer to give my child a natural product made with natural sugar rather than with an artificial sweetener. But, you know, this is part of the problem with some of these policies, is that it's channeling maybe implementation deficiencies because of requirements at a health level.
Moving on now, Sagicor Bank is looking to increase its market share in the local banking sector by offering clients some innovative products. WBR sat down with the bank's CEO recently. Here's what she told us. Sagicor Bank is attributing its recently successful numbers to its ability to deliver innovative products with the customer's experience being central.
You can't fight on rates. If you drop your rates today, all the other banks are going to do the same thing tomorrow. We have similar products, so the only edge that you can have is the customer experience. And what gives you that edge is the clients and the team members, not the clients, but the team members that you have. And our focus is on training our teams to serve our clients.
Two of the major new products Sagicor Bank rolled out last year were Swipe and MyCash. But did those products deliver as expected?
We didn't have a full year with those products. So what I'll say is stay tuned to see what we're going to have for this year. We had a couple of ads that were out where you had Ratty showing his fish, this other lady down by Coronation Market, and we were promoting them on social media. So there's a lot more that we will be doing for our clients and for our prospective clients this year. So I would say for those two products, they didn't have a full year. They came in midstream. I think one was in June and one was a little later on. So look and see what we're going to do this year. We expect bigger things.
With the bank doing so well locally, are there any expansion plans?
Well, I can't tell you anything, but what I can say to you is that in terms of mergers and acquisitions, there's always room for growth. You know, you can either grow organically or you can grow through mergers and acquisitions. So that is on my plate, you know, as one of my objectives. That is on Mr. Zaka's plate as one of his objectives. So stay tuned. We'll see what happens this year.
Shurville Johnson has been CEO at Sagicor Bank for just over a year, and she notes that there have been some highlights.
The fact that we launched two products last year, the MyCash and the Swipe, the fact that our NPS score, and that score, it's called a Net Promoter Score. The prior year it was at 31%, I believe, and it shot to 45%, and that tells you how many of your clients would recommend you to somebody else. And our score for 2018 was 45%, and that's a huge jump on a global basis, not even just taking it locally. The fact that what also felt good, you go out there and somebody said to you that, boy, we called Sagicor and we got through, or somebody called with a complaint to tell us what we weren't doing right, and we actually made them stay. So those were some of the highlights for me last year.
Jamaica's banking sector has been dominated by men in top positions for years, but the Sagicor Bank CEO says she's never been daunted or distracted by that fact.
I didn't grow up seeing a glass ceiling. I didn't grow up feeling that I'm a female who can't achieve anything that a man can get. So I can't answer that question because it's no difficult for me. I just know that you have a job, you have to go in, you have to achieve your targets, and that is where the focus is, right? The focus is on my team to make sure that my team are happy. And I don't know if the men do it that way, and I really don't care how they do it. What is important is how we treat people and how we treat people with respect. So I've never seen, or I've never sat down and thought, I am X position, you know, I'm a lady in a man's world. I've never seen it that way. My parents just didn't grow me up that way.
She hopes that when her tenure at the helm of Sagicor Bank has ended, the bank will be stronger and more profitable. For
Sagicor Bank to be known as the bank in Jamaica that all Jamaicans can come into to find their solutions. You know, our slogan, #InYourCorner, that will be the reality. So each year, you know, for the next 5 years, we've gone year one, but for the next 4 years coming up, that persons will really feel it. They'll not only hear it, but feel it. That is one. Two, in terms right now, in terms of assets, we're the 4th largest bank. In terms of profits, we're the 4th largest bank. Would really want to see, you know, us climbing up that ladder. You know, our friends up the way, they're making billions, but we want to get closer to that. And the only way we can do that is to continue to serve our clients in Jamaica.
Company news comes up next, then later from lessons about sexting to maneuvering intimate relationships. Kids in England are getting a new curriculum. More WBR after this break. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. Supreme Ventures Racing and Entertainment Limited looks to North America for revenue boost. Salada and the Jacra on collision course. And Main Events Entertainment market capitalization up 15%. Here's this week's company news.
Supreme Ventures Racing and Entertainment Limited is looking to North America to boost revenues. The company has partnered with Monarch Group to simulcast racing from Caymanas Park. The agreement will see the Monarch Group receiving and marketing content from Caymanas Park's race days. The Monarch Group currently acts as a simulcast purchase and sales agent for numerous North American racetracks and wagering outlets. Supreme Ventures says the agreement with the Monarch Group will give Jamaican companies an opportunity to reach a vast market at a fraction of the cost of traditional advertising, adding value not only to specific brands but to brand Jamaica. Salada Foods and the Jamaica Agricultural Commodities Regulatory Authority JACRA, which oversees the local coffee industry, are at odds. Salada says JACRA is demanding that there be a 30% local coffee input in locally manufactured instant coffee. Failure to do so will result in JACRA withholding any further approvals to Salada to import coffee green beans used in manufacturing its instant coffee powder. However, Salada is arguing that this change will materially impact the integrity and change the taste profile of its Mountain Peak brand instant coffee powder. The manufacturing company also argues that the input of 30% local coffee content will also significantly increase the cost to purchase instant coffee and therefore the level of profitability of Salada going forward. Main Event Entertainment is reporting a 15% increase in its market capitalization at the end of the 2018 financial year. The company says its market capitalization grew by almost $2 billion last financial year, which saw its stock price closing the year at $6.50, up from $5.62 the previous financial year. Gross profit was also up, moving from $567 million to $642 million year over year.
Let's now take a look at how some of the major global stock markets ended the week. When you come back, more of the week's top stories from the BATV News Desk. So stay with us. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. More news now. Co-chair of the Economic Program Oversight Committee, EPOC, Keith Duncan, says the government is on track to meet the latest targets under the International Monetary Fund's precautionary standby arrangement. More in this report.
EPOC's co-chair Keith Duncan says all the country's economic indicators are pointing in the right direction under the IMF's precautionary standby agreement.
EPOC is of the view that the economic program remains on track. Based on the preliminary results for the performance to date through the end of December 2018, the GOJ is on track to meet the targets for the quantitative performance criteria and indicative targets for the IMF precautionary standby arrangement program.
He lists the overperformance in tax revenues, budget surplus, increased capital expenditure, record low unemployment, high net international reserves, and the floating currency as some of the fiscal and monetary targets that were met under the review period.
So tax revenues are projected to increase by 7%. Note that they increased by 10% year to date. Capital expenditures will see a marginal increase from a projected $68.8 billion for 2018-19 to $72 billion in 2019-20. So a marginal increase in capital expenditure is projected for the budget period 2019-20. The primary balance is projected to close the fiscal year this year at $142.1 billion, is estimated to close the fiscal year 2019-20 at $150.9 billion.
Former Deputy Governor of the Bank of Mexico, Dr. Manuel Ramos Francia, says the rate of the recovery of the Jamaican economy is exemplary for the Caribbean and Latin American region. He's applauding the Bank of Jamaica for focusing on inflation targeting instead of the exchange rate. The former deputy governor, who's also an economist, says the central bank's coordinated efforts to anchor the country's economic indicators to inflation is a step in the right direction.
Inflation targeting has been very successful. It certainly needs fiscal consolidation as a necessary condition, and it permits prices to reflect market forces in precisely the way an economy that tries to assign efficiently its resources in the market is expected to do. So I think that, again, there has been a very important success story with inflation targeting, and I think, again, that the way this country is going, I think, is the correct way, and it has many aspects to that, but I think that, again, the right decisions are being taken. So.
He says when a country anchors its fiscal policies on the exchange rate, it's consistently forced to compete with the global market, which trades every day. He says countries in the region often price services in foreign dollars, which puts pressure on these industries and triggers a response from central bank to act.
Usually when we have a situation in an economy where the real exchange rate is overvalued, and this is basically reflected in an evaluation of the nominal exchange rate, sooner or later that exchange rate will come under pressure, under stress. And the markets will probably evaluate that there's some misalignment with that nominal exchange rate, and given that the economy or the central bank is using the nominal exchange rate as an anchor, it will have to defend against the possible market reaction that believes that exchange rate is no longer sustainable.
The National Water Commission NWC is projecting that it will spend some $7.2 billion on capital projects, which includes almost $740 million for the completion of the Kingston Water Supply Improvement Project. Here's more.
The National Water Commission NWC is expecting revenues of $40 billion for the upcoming fiscal year. That's above the $32 billion estimated for the current year. The bulk of this increased income is projected to be as a result of increases in revenues from the Commission's three main earning categories: water, sewage, and monies collected from service charge. Meanwhile, the company's deficit is expected to be drastically lowered for the period, coming in at just over $1 billion compared to the $6.4 billion for the current fiscal year. In the meantime, NWC is planning to spend over $7 billion on different capital projects over the coming fiscal year. $2.6 billion has been allocated for their new digital meter program. The Commission expects to change out some 86,000 meters, and this is expected to impact their revenues from water. Some $739 million has been earmarked for the completion of the Kingston Metropolitan Area KMA Water Supply Improvement Project. Along with replacing defective meters, a number of other revenue-boosting initiatives are projected to be undertaken over the fiscal year. These include converting illegal users and inactive users into billed customers. They hope to also improve their collection rate from 86% to 90% by the end of the fiscal year in March 2020.
When you come back, kids in England get a new curriculum that involves lessons about sexting. More on that after the break. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. All children in England are to be taught a new set of compulsory lessons on relationships, keeping safe on the internet, and looking after their own mental health. The government proposals will see primary school children being taught relationship education, secondary school kids will get relationship and sex education, and the children of all ages will receive health education.
This group of 10 and 11-year-olds are learning how to protect themselves online.
Really, they're saying that's the age at which you're emotionally able to deal with the content of either the film or the game.
By 2020, this type of lesson will be part of the new health and relationships curriculum in all schools.
Now I know how to be safe online, and I know the different things that could happen, and I know how to deal with them now.
You know that not everyone's intentions are good, and that there can be some people who are claiming to be your age and that they just want to be friends, but they could have worse intentions than that, and they want to be cruel to you and mean.
All pupils will get lessons on physical and mental health, covering everything from the importance of sleep to dealing with anxiety to sexting. Primary children will start lessons on relationships, including same-sex relationships and transgender issues, while secondary relationships lessons will cover sex education and extend to topics like female genital mutilation and domestic abuse. Work has already started here. Alongside their SATS exams, this group will also start sex education lessons.
I can educate the children with as much facts and pass exams, but if they're not safe or healthy, then it won't be much use to them in the future.
What we have to try and do as the government is to get a balance, to make sure that kids growing up can be resilient, can try and make sense of themselves and the world around them as they're growing up, and can be ready for the adult world that they're going into.
But not all are sure it's right for their children.
I suppose it's not a bad thing as long as it's not pushed on them too much.
I think the school do need to be involved, but I think there's a time and a place for it, and probably an age.
Parents can opt out, but only if their child is under 15. Stacey Foster, ITV News, Newcastle under Lyme.
And that's our show for this week. On behalf of the entire Weekend Business Report team, I'm Keneal. See you next time.